And hello good people of the internet, it is I, Tommy Kelly, and this is Adventures in Woo Woo. And in this episode, we're going to do another one of those question and answer sessions. You know, the ones where I talk a lot of rubbish when people ask me questions. You know them ones. So hello and welcome to another question and answer video. It's been a long while since I did one of these. Mostly because who am I to answer anyone's questions? And I know there's kind of this preamble I normally give, which is please don't take anything I say as any kind of inspired thing. And I kind of didn't get the sense during the week when I was thinking about this, is that perhaps none of you are thinking that. Don't think, well, Tommy, no one actually thinks you know all the answers. So, you know, don't flatter yourself thinking that we might think you know all the answers. But it's mostly just that I don't want to come across as, I suppose, as saying that I know what I'm on about. All of this is just purely opinion. There's none of it capital T truth. It's all small t Tommy truth. So we'll get straight into this. But first, there's a lovely smell in the air as I got a new incense burner, which I'm really happy with. I just wanted to quickly mention it because I put it up on Facebook and Twitter and a few other places, and people really liked it. And it's a resin incense burner, but you don't use charcoal, you just use a candle. And it has this kind of a mesh on it, and so the incense the resin just burns as it would normally and smokes away. And if it is quite liquidy, if it melts really well, like the way, say, dragon's blood might, or some of the frankincense, depending on what grade you get, then it comes with this plate that you can put on it and burn on it as well. So I got it on Amazon. There's a couple of different versions of it. I'm not going to do the link in the description thing, the affiliate link. Maybe I should. If there's a link in the description, it's an affiliate link. If there's no link in the description, then just go and check on Amazon and see what you can find. They're called incense, resin, burner, candles, some sort of keyword thing, you'll find it. So, getting straight into this. Sarah Lee asks, is it possible that the 40 servants will refuse to work with some people? Is it possible for someone who's had great success to reach out to the servants on behalf of those who are not having much luck? So the first question, is it possible that the servants will refuse to work with some people? Yes is the answer, but the wording of the question, I'm not quite, I wouldn't agree with the wording of the question. Like, the 40 servants will not work for some people, but I don't think the refuse is the thing that I would question. In that I don't think that's how it works. Magic doesn't work for everyone. It doesn't work for me all the time. It doesn't work for anyone I know all the time, apart from people who, let's call them liars. But there's a whole lot of reasons why magic doesn't work. And most of it's to do with yourself and to do with your own shadow stuff, and, you know, or picking a target that's too hard or out of your reach. It's like learning to run and then going, well, I'm going to run a marathon on my first day, and if I can't run the marathon, then obviously running doesn't exist in the way, you know, I get into magic, and then most people try to win the lottery, and then when they don't win the lottery, it's just, you know, dismiss magic as out of hand. If you go like, don't start with the lottery, don't start with a marathon. So you could be hitting a target that's far too high for you ever, or far too high currently. You know, they might be just out of your reach, and you'd be as well kind of approach smaller things. Like, don't try to become instantly a millionaire or, you know, financial freedom if you're, you know, massively in debt, or your finances are all over the place. Work on it slowly, step by step, stage by stage, and you'll get there. It can also refuse because you have a lack of an ability to allow these things, good things. You could have a thing where you feel that you don't deserve goodness. Or you could have a victim mentality. You could have had someone telling you don't deserve all these things, so you have all this going on. Loads of different shadow things that could be going against you in the kind of art of allowing, as they would say in the New Age type of thing. But so you could be getting the magic stuff, but you could be getting what happens, and it was an interesting to happen to me an awful lot, and still does when I know there's a shadow element at work, is that whenever I do magic for something, or I set a goal, whatever it is, and I get the exact opposite of what I wanted, then there's there's definitely a rebound, a shadow thing going on. In that if you enchant for some more money and then all of a sudden a huge bill, an unexpected bill comes in, then that's a signpost, in my opinion, that you've some shadow stuff going on that you probably have to walk around and get that. So refuse, could the 47th refuse? I don't think so. It's not how I see it, but it might work for some people, if that answers your question. Is it possible for someone who had great success to reach out with servants on behalf of those who are not having much luck? Well, this all depends on what you think the 40 servants are. And I had a good chat with Spud about all this recently. My current thinking is that mostly, I suppose, in a sense that they are aspects of the magician, or at least they're things that should be cultivated by the magician, whereas they're still external in the fact that they're ideas that they're external, but they're not spirits, they're not saints, they're not demons, they're not entities in the sense of sovereign beings, but they are external in the sense that they're ideas, and that the mother is an external idea to everyone, but yet we know what it is internally, you can use it internally. Or the example I gave in the talk with Spud is that Superman is an external idea, but it's an idea in our heads. So what Superman is, it doesn't exist as a real thing in the way that, I don't know, Queen Elizabeth II exists as a person. Or a lizard, whatever. So it all depends on whether you think that your thoughts can affect other people. And of course, there's a history in healing, say, for instance, like in Reiki and all these other things, where you have this idea of distant healing. And Reiki initially started just as a distant healing thing. Even if people came to him, to Yasui himself, he would go into a different room and do it all distant. So he believed it was, the spooky action at a distance, to badly to steal and out of context Einstein. So could they? It depends what you think. Currently, I think ideas can affect other people. Certainly, I can write a book, or someone could write a book which could change someone's life. I could write a song that could dramatically affect someone else in a very profound, life-changing way. I could be part of a situation that I instigated that would dramatically affect someone else. You know, I could go beat someone up, and that's going to dramatically affect them, and that's something that I've done. I could, that's more of a physical act, I suppose, but you get my kind of drift. The best with all of these things, and the kind of thing that I encourage you to do, is to test it and see if it works. And if it works, do more of it. And if it doesn't work, change it and see if you can get it working a different way, or then decide that it doesn't work for you and find some other way of doing it. But it depends. To answer your question, it depends on what you think the 40 servants are. I definitely think you can affect other people in a positive way, but that mightn't be exactly what you're asking. Like, you could, by invoking the healer in yourself, you could affect healing in someone else. I think so. Just double check my focus. Nothing worse than recording a video, and then when you go to edit and you see the bookshelf behind you is perfectly in focus and your eyes are just blurs. Casey McClennan. Casey, I'm terrible at names, my apologies. Clennan, yeah? I'm reading The Magical Universe of William S. Burroughs and wondering what your thoughts may be, if any, on him. I know nothing about, I know two things about Burroughs. One, about his cut-up technique that David Bowie talked about and stole, where you take words from headlines or from newspapers or whatever, and then just kind of randomly put them out and see if they make any kind of sense. And I also know it's claimed that he, for some reason, ended up reading a pre-published version of the Simonomicon and said this is a book that's going to change the world. But that's very anecdotal evidence by Simon. So that's kind of all I know about him. I know people who are into him, and I don't dismiss him. It's like Pink Floyd. People say, do you like Pink Floyd? I go, I just never got around to listening to them. You can't be into all music, you can't be into everyone. I'm sure he's wonderful, I'm sure he's terrible in places too. I'm sure Pink Floyd have some fantastic songs. I'm not dismissing Pink Floyd. It just didn't come into my thing. At some stage I will read Burroughs and I will have opinions on him, I'm sure. I'm also wondering who influenced you within your own constructs of magic the most. Rather it was art, books, or friends, maybe all of the above. Definitely books, because up until very recently I hadn't met anyone who was into magic at all, other than one Wiccan when I was at college in my kind of late 20s, 26, 27, and I did hang around with some druids, but they weren't really doing magic, they were doing rituals, and they were very I'd asked them about magic, and they pretended that, it was kind of, you don't need books, you don't need these things, you just feel it. In other words, I think in hindsight they just didn't know, and they were trying to pretend that they knew more than what they did. and that's fine. So it definitely would have been books and that kind of thing rather than real people. Alan Moore was probably my first huge kind of influence magic, in that I was so impressed with the fact that he announced that he was a magician to the world. Why I was so impressed with that was because I was surrounded at the time with just really staunch atheists and militant atheists and, you know, hard-nosed and aggressive Facebook, Twitter atheists that you find. And I just assumed the world was kind of like that, everyone was like that. And I thought it was quite cool that Alan Moore stood up in defiance of that. But I don't really, like, he didn't really, like, he just continued to be Alan Moore. I like his stance on magic. I think his stance on magic and his kind of thing of art equals magic, or creativity equals magic, and I've definitely stolen that. I think that's easier to explain to other people who aren't into magic, that kind of approach, rather than the kind of overall woo-woo thing. Gordon White, huge influence from back into the, you know, from very quick. I watched the Grant Morrison, which is obviously a huge influence, him rather than say his work himself. I like Invisibles. But I'm not a huge fan of others. I don't really like superheroes, so that kind of, you know, stopped you from enjoying an awful lot of Grant Morrison stuff, I suppose. So I watched his Disinfo lecture, not at the time because it was 1999, so it's definitely after. It's close, nearly 10 years later. I seen it, and that led me to Gordon White and sigils, because, you know, Grant Morrison talks about sigils in the Disinfo lecture, and so if you put sigils and chaos magic into Google, Gordon is the first person that comes up. So I spent a lot of time at Rune Soup and all that, and really enjoyed all of that kind of thing, especially the practical stuff. Kind of enjoyed the political stuff and the conspiracy stuff and the, you know, the Archon stuff and all that as well. But that kind of, for me, goes into the David Icke type stuff. You know, it's an interesting entertainment. I've no idea if it's true. When he starts going on about the, you know, the glass things on the moon, I kind of, I don't know, my eyes glaze over a bit more. But you know, I don't discount it out of hand either. Or David Icke. Queen Elizabeth II may very well be a lizard. How could I possibly know? So Alan Chapman then, his stuff, the Baptist Head and Advanced Magic for Beginners, particularly Advanced Magic for Beginners with regards to magic, because I just love the simplicity of it and the whole thing of, you know, try it. You know, will this work? Try it and see if it works, and then do more of it if it does work, and do less of it if it doesn't work. Or, you know, augment it. That kind of approach I really like. It, you know, it's like when you're on Reddit and people, you know, you see loads of questions. Could I use this for this? And go, well, try it. You know, why didn't you just try it? You know, but I suppose people are afraid of doing something wrong, so there's that. But then the Baptist Head is the meditation stuff and all that I really like as well. But I have to be in a certain frame of mind. If I spend too long in that kind of very serious stuff, I go a bit nuts. And I would like an awful lot of, say, the Mergia stuff that he's doing currently now, without any of the sideline woo. I think it could be a good kind of psychological approach, the meditation and the binding and stuff like that. But then when it gets into the kind of Eon prophecy and the lamp stuff and all that, I tend to, it starts becoming unreal. That you know, it becomes a bit LARPing for me. For me, I strictly said, like, in that it's, you know, I don't know, but it's good. Who else? Grant Morrison, Alan Moore, Gordon White, Crowley, of course. Like, is there Red Lot? Don't test me on him. I don't know enough that, you know, I could have a discussion with someone, but I certainly, you know, couldn't point to things in it. My bookshelf that are coming up. Stuart Wilde's my main influence. Like, that's from day one. He wouldn't consider himself chaos magician, but I certainly would consider him a chaos magician. Young, recently Peter Kingsley. Huge into reality transurfing at the minute. So there's all that. I just have to keep looking at the time because of this DSLR. Okay, the last question. I'm sure I'm missing people out that as soon as I stop recording this, I will very much, you know, remember. Last but not least, I know you stated that you made the 47th for yourself originally with what initiated this process to start with. I had done a deck for someone else, for a client who asked me to do like a gypsy card deck. So all of the templates and how to get it printed and all known about the game craft and all of that was put into place by that. And so the kind of infrastructure was, I knew it, and I go, well, so I may as well try and do some kind of, thing. And I had a load of artwork together that would kind of fit a kind of a tarot or an oracle deck or something. And so that was kind of the very mundane kind of side of it, the practical side of it. But also I was coming to the end of what I felt was the end of my artistic career. Things had gone very bad financially. Things were all over the place. I had a couple months at most left that I felt I would be able to sustain my life with it, and then I would have to go off and, the thing in my image in my head was go off and sweep the streets, and just have sort of humdrum, crappy life of despair. And so I said, I'll do one last thing that I can bring with me, this kind of a magical tool for me that while I have the time and the opportunity, that I will at least have something to show for it by the end of it. So that was the kind of idea. Also, the approach was that I wanted to use all of the different ideas from all the different people, from all the different cultures. I wanted to culturally appropriate in a kind of in a way that allowed me access to all of these ideas and energies or archetypes or beings or all of this kind of thing in an aesthetically pleasing way for me, and that it felt that I would be allowed to, in the sense that I might not be allowed, Papa Lagba mightn't come to me in a voodoo sense, because it's not my culture, it's not my thing, it's not my background, it would be kind of forced. But the gatekeeper, certainly, I have access to him, and that's kind of the whole thing. So, Crow, haven't heard you talk about your fur babies, which are pets, recently. Interesting you should ask me today, because as I was saying in the Spud and Tommy recent podcast, we were in the middle of Hurricane Brendan, and my gate blew off and my dogs ran away last night, and one of them did come back, but the other one, who's blind, deaf, has arthritis, has a huge kind of lipoma on her side, has gone. And I spent the morning looking for her all around the place, and I don't know. That's currently where the dog situation is. So that's what it is. But we've the red alert out with everyone. I'll try and go out again. I was around all the fields and all the kind of spots. I don't know. She can barely walk. She can't see and she can't hear. So I mean, you'd suspect that she can't get far, and there's been no dogs been run over on any of the roads in my area or anything, and you'd know. One of my turtles died as well recently. He kind of exploded one morning, which happened to one of my fish before years and years ago. It's not really, it looks like an explosion, but the bloat, and then he was huge in the end. So that was kind of horrible too. The other turtles are fine. Riggs is a lunatic. He's an absolute lunatic. We're trying to get him to go outside. He's just not having it at all, but is going stir crazy, has cabin fever in the house. So the whole idea was when I got in this office, he was going to come out with me and he'd be going in and out of that, go back into the house at night, but he's having none of it whatsoever. No, don't like this place, don't like it at all. Which, to be fair, the two times he kind of ran out of the house on his own, first time we went away for a whole night and came back covered in this black stuff, so God knows what he got into. And the second time, I ran over him because he went under the car. So, why wouldn't you be fearful of the outside world? And Braxis, any paradigm shifts recently or lately? So the last kind of one was that whole idea that I was talking about in the videos of seeing myself as nothing more than a collection of other people's ideas, and just seeing my recordings and my loops and stuff. And that's kind of the last big one that I had, which is kind of fading away. There's a kind of a thing that seems to happen, that you get these kind of insights, maybe not, but the moments of clarity around things, and unless you kind of get the lesson of it, they seem to just fade away and go away, and I don't seem to ever get the lesson properly off them, and so it'll come back in a loop again now in a while, and maybe next time I'll understand, or I'll get whatever kind of insight I'm meant to get from that, or do whatever practical work. Now, I tried my best. It wasn't that I was ignoring it or whatever, and I did follow it as much as I could, and maybe there was some sort of release or some sort of switch or some sort of puzzle piece put in place out of that. But the other one is I'm definitely coming from the idea of shifting around. This is a constant kind of shift of feeling that it's all, psychological, and that there's no kind of, in a sense, it's going a wee bit back to idealism, but it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of in flux in a minute, so I don't really know where it's going, because it's not. I can feel probably there'll be a sort of possible kind of reductionist materialist path for me for a while, like a kind of a very mundane kind of things are exactly as they appear to be, rather than what I kind of normally have is that things are representations of something else. But I don't know, I'm a bit in flux because there is a bit of idealism going on too. Spending a lot of time with reality trance suffering and the whole kind of multiple dimensions kind of thing, which as much as I love reality trance surfing, I don't really buy that as it's that dimension jumping stuff I'm not really fully there with. But you know, I like the practical things that come from that idea. So that kind of answers. So no, I suppose is the answer. Any paradigm shift, not really. No. Uriel Maya. Maya. Can I use the servants to manipulate the Kundalini and open the chakras? You can certainly try. They're not designed for that kind of stuff, but I can't see why not. There would certainly be servants that would be very much representative of the different chakras. So say, like even from the Manipura chakra, which is the root chakra, the lower chakra, the red chakra, you would certainly, the road opener would be a good one there because Ganesha is, associated with the root chakra, and so that way, you could certainly work that way and through that kind of a thing. Solar plexus, you have the sun, the heart chakra. You could go with something like the mother. Which is this kind of the love, the beloved, that type of thing. But you can choose. This is just things that are coming into my head. There's probably ones that will relate better for you. Throat chakra would be protester, speaking your truth. Also could be conductor though. Being the master of your own voice and your own music and that kind of thing. Depends on what you're trying to do, I suppose, and why your throat chakra would be blocked. Is it that you feel you're not being allowed to say what you want, or you're not being heard, or that you feel other people are speaking for you, whatever your approach. The third eye, Ajni, would be, you could go with the seer, you could go with, I don't know, the seer probably is the best one, that kind of intuition, or any of the kind of, the seer probably, and then the, top chakra. Jesus, my brain is so bad sometimes. You could have, you could also go with the contemplator for the Ajni, the third eye. That might be a good one as well. And then you would have the master for the top chakra, the number one chakra, the main chakra. Man, I used to know all the names and all the attributes and all of those things at one stage. That was part of my brain, and not so much. So you could do it that way, and you could certainly. You could work with the healer in a kind of to try to repair the different aspects that are associated with the chakras. The Kundalini itself, the rising, suggests that you shouldn't try to do it, that it's a natural occurrence that happens from doing the work, and trying to force it is where problems arise. And it's like that unearned wisdom stuff that Jung talks about. I think he was pointing more at drugs and that, but it's same with the Kundalini, like trying to rise it. You probably could before you're ready, and doesn't seem to work out for an awful lot of people when they do that. So just try it and see what happens. But that would be my suggestion. Pick a servant that represents each of the chakras and work with them. Greg Latchkey, how would you describe your cosmology worldview? I would describe it as very confused. I would describe it as frustrating, exasperating. It's my big question. It's the big wonder. The big one is the why. That's why that's the thing. But that's tied to the cosmology worldview. It's like, why is this happening? And I have no satisfactory answer. And anyone I've looked at, anyone I've talked to, Alan Chapman had a great kind of answer for me that fit his cosmology and stuff like that. And it was about one being that it's procreation of a god, which that makes sense, but why? The other was that we had a false conclusion. We seen God and had a false conclusion about it, which really, brings us to this plane that we're in. This would all make more sense within the Alan Chapman kind of cosmology and all that. So if it doesn't make much sense, or it sounds a bit weird, it makes it way more sense within his kind of spiritual view and stuff like that. And that whole thing of we're here to learn, don't buy it. Why would we? It's like, why would a god need to learn something? Alan Watts is playing hide and seek again. Why would God be bored enough to have to do that? Why does he not already know himself? What is the Kabbalah thing of that? Unless there was two, there was nothing to compare itself. So it's God knowing itself. Like, they're all kind of fine. But I find them unsatisfactory. It still comes down to the tremendous amount of pain and suffering and hardship and hell that people through history to know, that animals, that all of these things, like, there's absolutely unbelievable in the proper, like in the whole truest sense of that word, pain and suffering that life entails. I can't see why anything is worth that. And I know that's from a very kind of limited perspective to say that, but that's my big kind of block is about it, that surely anything could be, it's surely whatever it is that's been trying to be achieved could be achieved without this disgusting amount of pain and suffering. And the only kind of opposite of that is that maybe we are in hell, or it's a trap, and that whole Gnosticism thing and all that. But some people have a great life. Some people do really well and really happy. So we can't be, it can't be both. We can't be in hell if people are enjoying it for the large. But I think ignorance, in the sense of not the way sometimes we use it as being impolite, ignorance in the sense of lack of knowledge about the world. It's like, it's easy to not concern yourself with the suffering of the world if you're unaware of it. Or you don't, I've talked to some people and I'd say, and I'm like this myself, I don't want to know anything about the news, I don't want to know anything about the tragedy and suffering, because I can't deal with it, because all I do is worry and be distraught about it, and I can't help any of it. So all I'm doing is adding to more of the sum total of sorrow to the earth by interacting with it. And that's a deliberate point of view, a deliberate kind of practical approach, a strategy. Whereas some people, like, say, even with like the suffering of, say, animals or something with regard to, we were just discussing different things. I don't really have an approach to it, but I just don't want to think about it. I just don't want to think about it. And I understand that, because it's horrifying to think about it. It's horrifying to think about the world, and you have to, in some way, have some sort of put some distance and dissonance between you and the reality of it. And I think an awful lot of our kind of approaches to that is not facing up to the reality of, because you're not even allowed to say it. You're not even allowed to really say how terrible life is, because people will instantly correct you by saying, oh, you have it, the whole privilege thing, or you could have it much worse. Who have you to complain about? All of these things kind of, it's like an inbuilt kind of thing within us that we're not allowed to point at the terribleness of existence. So my worldview is unknown. I don't know. I don't have the answer. And I don't want to agree with the Gnostics, because certain Gnostics, because that doesn't fulfill it either. There seems to be something else going on. I don't know. And I probably will never know. And that's the way it is. Evan X, methods of gnosis. Screaming was probably the greatest moment of magic I ever did, in that I was in a very bad, horrible place years ago, and I got extremely pissed off with the universe to the point that I just screamed at it, and at that point released my intention into the thing, and it happened really, really quick. Now, to reenact that, or to I don't want to do that every day, to launch a sigil or to launch an intention or something like that. But if you can get yourself to some sort of extreme emotion like that, absolute frustration and anger and exasperation, then I think that it's probably the best. Wank method doesn't ever really do anything for me. It works no more than just drawing a sigil, so it's like, draw a sigil, 6 out of 10 times it'll happen. More if I don't care about it, less if I more if I don't care about it, and less if I really do care about it. If I really want the target to come out, there's less chance. So whether I gnosis through masturbation or just do the sigil, it works out about 6 out of 10 most of the time anyway, with that kind of multiplier thing of how much I want it. Meditation too, but I don't know. I'm not huge in gnosis. I'm not sold on the concept, although I do think there's something to it. But just that Pete Carroll kind of element of it, I'm not really. Gnosis just means knowledge anyway, and so it's I don't know. Probably something that will be individual to the person anyway. But an extreme emotion, some way of inserting your program into the matrix, you know, your kind of little hack, any of those type of things. I think even like, if that's the goal, then I do other things. Like I used to put sigils where people would find them, or put money on top of them, like offerings, or leave stuff that people would come across. That was kind of my way of inserting the magic into the world, or you know, hacking the matrix, or whatever way we want to put it. Like, so making it that other people have to find it, I find pleasing, I suppose, is the best way to put it. So yeah, so that's it. That's the questions and answers. I enjoyed them, as usual, the caveat of what the fuck do I know about anything. But I hope in some way that the answers entertained you, if nothing else, and got you thinking about your own. So please do tell me your answers to each of those questions and how you feel about any of them and what your kind of ideas around them are. Very open to any kind of thoughts on that, particularly around the cosmology and the worldview and why are we here and what is the point, and whatever it is your answer to that, ask why 5 times like a child, like an annoying child, and see where it ends up. And if you can, I've never got the 5 whys satisfactorily with any kind of theory on that. So good people of the internet, until our next adventure, be well.